Season 2 of Love, Transform, Evolve is brought to you by Dreams Financial. When I was looking for a new financial advisor, Alex and Steph were the obvious choice. They didn't just see me as a client, but rather as a partner in building and protecting my wealth. Their personalized approach and innovative solutions have made financial planning a breeze, not to mention the fact that they are in it with me, explaining everything as we go so that I always know where my money is going and why. And when it comes to the death of a loved one, Alex and Steph are experts at providing compassionate guidance, offering clarity and direction. For more information, visit their website at dreamsfinancial.ca. This is Love, Transform, Evolve. I'm your host, Cynthia Iorio. Welcome to your transformation.
It was something that I didn't even know I was learning until I needed to use the skills.
It is something that I think about a lot.
That's it. I mean, that is everything.
This really has been transformative.
Oof, what a season it has been. Here we are, episode 8, Transformation. We've been through so many ups and downs this season. It's been painful and hopeful. It's been insightful and difficult. And really, I think that this season embodies the transformative process that is caregiving. Cambridge University says the definition of transformation is a complete change in the appearance or character of something or someone, especially so that thing or person is improved. And I particularly love this definition because of the way that it ends. So that the thing or the person is improved. And the reality is that when you are going through this transformation, like a caterpillar in a cocoon who is transforming and literally trying to struggle and rearranging its anatomy to turn into something beautiful, it could be painful. And I also don't want to insult any of you who are going through the process right now and discredit that pain, that difficulty is your reality. I don't want to deny the experience that you're having right now and say, oh, it'll get better, you'll be fine, because the reality is right now what you're living is hard. But if you're going to come out on the other side of it, it means that there is an opportunity for change. And there is an opportunity for transformation. Now, for myself, I can tell you that change happened as a result of the experience that I had in caregiving only once I took a step back to reflect and look backwards. And the very, very first step that I did that helped me start to understand how caregiving transformed me was to have awareness of what were the things that I did great in my caregiving journey. Because when you can acknowledge and have the ability to be aware of the things that you do well, it gives you the courage to be able to face the things that maybe you didn't do so well. And that's hard, to face the things that you didn't do so well. You know, I say in season 1, in the season called Lead with Love, that caregiving highlights our strengths and it amplifies our weaknesses. And the first step is to really acknowledge what our strengths are. And we don't necessarily, and we can't necessarily see that there are strengths until we are thrust into the difficult situation. Take Anna Czarnecki, for example. We met her earlier on in the season when she was talking about how she was caregiving for her husband, but actually her caregiving journey when she became a caregiver suddenly overnight to her parents. When you hear this next clip of my interview with her, I want you to pay particular attention to the revelation that she has on how the things that she was already doing well in her life came in to help her when she was thrust into this role.
Well, this experience started when I turned 30 years old and my mom and dad were in a really horrible car accident that left my mom as a quadriplegic. So she required a lot of care from both my dad and from me, and my brother also chipped in just to basically get through every single day. So she needed help to eat, to get dressed, to, get anything done throughout the day. She needed somebody's assistance. And my dad couldn't do it all. So probably it was about 18 years ago, it was my first experience with true caregiving, where I had to put my needs and my desires to the side to make sure that I was there for someone who needed me more.
Tell me a little bit about where you were in your life at that time, what was going on, and how did you kind of pivot to be there for your mom?
So at the time, my parents lived in the US and I was living in Montreal doing my master's. I was getting my MBA at McGill. So it came at a really, I think, difficult time for me, where I was trying to be focused on school and trying to figure out the next phase of my life. And then just happenstance over the Christmas break, they got into this accident, and it seemed like in, the flick of a switch, my whole life changed. So then it went from being, a student and somewhat carefree to being someone who had to worry about everything, had to worry about how were her parents going to finance their life now that my mom couldn't work. How was my brother going to be taken care of? How were we going to manage the house in Canada and also have to manage their situation in the US where they had absolutely nobody to help them? So it created a lot of stress and uncertainty in my life at the time.
How did you cope with that?
I think one of the ways that I coped with it was just leaning into it, realizing that this was something that happened. It was unfair and it was unfortunate, but this is what we had to deal with. And I'm just made of strong stock. Both my parents, I think, taught me what family means, had a good, strong set of values, a very, very close relationship with my parents and my brother. We were the only family that we have here in Canada. We left Poland when I was very young. So my parents really didn't have a support system or network. So we just always relied on each other. So I coped by just doing what I was taught to do. It was something that I didn't even know I was learning until I needed to use the skills when this happened.
Did you apply any of the skills that you had acquired in going to school and kind of doing your master's in this caregiving role that you had to take on?
I think that, yeah, definitely. Without having thought about it that way, I think one of the things that you have to learn when you're trying to balance going to school and working and also having a social life is time management and how to compartmentalize. And I think that compartmentalizing is something that I've gotten really good at. Giving myself the time to grieve, to be upset, but then also being able to put that aside and still enjoy life. Even if you're going through something terrible or difficult, it's still important to find the light in the day and some joy.
So when I talk about having the courage to reflect on yourself, your strengths, and your weaknesses, I want to tell you a bit about my story and where my courage came from. So I lost my mom. I was 35 years old. As you've heard in this podcast, I took a year and I wanted to inject as much life as I could. And my grief kind of came in afterwards. I didn't really face my grief, right? Because I had lived so much of heaviness that I just wanted to live light. But within a couple of years of my mother passing away, I became pregnant. And something really interesting happened to me in that moment. The moment I got pregnant, it was like I was forced to face all of the wounds and all of the grief that I didn't want to face previously. And why? Because there was something that was activated inside of me that made me realize that I had an opportunity at 37 years old to pass along wisdom to my child and not my wounds. And what did that mean? That meant that I had to take my finger and put it in the bullet hole of the wounds that I had experienced, not just in the year that had transpired where I cared for my mother, but a lot of things, a lot of weight that I was carrying with me throughout my life. And look at that and examine all of those things that were weighing me down and really start what you'd hear so many people talk about in the wellness field, but their path to healing. After having lost my mom, I had to basically reparent myself. And I had to learn about how the beliefs that I had when I was younger shaped me and where they came from and what I wanted to keep and what I wanted to discard. And I had to look at and examine the really complex relationship that I had with my mom, a woman who I loved so much, who her loss was monumental in my life, but I had to look at what were the dynamics of our relationship and what were the amazing things about that relationship that I wanted to carry through with my daughter, and what were maybe some of the things that I wanted to change. We can't deny the fact that we are who we are based on the relationships and the foundations from which we come from. And I don't think that looking back at these relationships and how they inform who we are is reserved solely for people who lose their parents and solely for people who lose their parents at 35 years old. Take, for example, Maria Fornasier. She's a woman in her mid-60s who reached out to me after the end of season 1, which resonated with her so much. Maria became a caregiver during COVID to her mother who was in her 80s. It was the first time that she actually had to step into this role. Maria's mother was self-sufficient up until that point, but she had developed some physical ailments, and due to social distancing and, other types of restrictions, Maria had to step into this primary caregiver role. She was also a retired school teacher, and she has children, so she was kind of balancing all of these roles herself. And one of the main things that Maria realized is that being with her mother in such close proximity was an opportunity to learn about her mother, not just as her mom, but also as a woman, and gave her the ability to reflect on this relationship and reflect on how she has been transformed as a woman, not just based on that dynamic, but based on the fact that she now had to care for her mom. So season 2 of this podcast is really going to focus on transformation. How would you say the role of caregiver has transformed you in your own life?
I would say that the main way that it has transformed me is that it has helped me to understand myself a lot better, understand myself as my mother's daughter and our relationship. So much that I maybe resented or didn't understand about my mother as my mother when I was growing up, I'm able to understand a lot better now. And for myself, for my journey through life, and then also as a mother, how I am with my own children, this really has been transformative. I don't think that's too strong a word.
What do you think your children would say, or how do you think your children would say you've changed the most?
That's an excellent question, Cynthia. Yeah. I hope that what they would say is that they've seen that I am the kind of person, the kind of mother who is there for the long haul, who doesn't give up, who is able to see, who is able to feel gratitude even in difficult situations, who is able to. I feel that I've really had to, in a very conscious way, in a very practical way, take on the mantle of the oldest child, of the oldest daughter. And so I hope that, especially for my daughter, that she sees that as an example of what women are capable of.
Sounds to me like you hold that with pride.
Definitely. Definitely. I do. Yes.
How do your 6 siblings feel?
I hope even the ones who are struggling, I don't even think so much with me, but just the whole idea of acceptance that their mother is old now and requires help, isn't able to do all that she did before. I hope that in the end that they will see that I did my best.
Now, when I think about what Maria last said, aren't we all just trying to do our best? Caregiving is truly an experience that allows us to step into what it really means to be a human. All of the ups and the downs and the struggles and the stress and the pain and the isolation, all of it, really, this injustice of being human, this suffering of being human, but also the highs that come along with it, the new relationships that come out of it, and the opportunity to change the way we think about life and who we want to keep in our lives and who we don't. In my own personal journey of journaling and therapy and coaches and all of that kind of stuff, really unpacking and trying to heal those wounds, one of the things that was most important to me is to learn how I talk to myself. And when we have the courage to face ourselves and be kind to ourselves, we allow ourselves the opportunity to grow and to heal. And one of the hardest things about being a human, especially highlighted in the caregiving role, is watching someone else suffer and them not want to do something about it, or them not be able to do something about it. And it calls into question so much of what would happen to me in that situation. What would I do? And it brings in what I call the element of complexity. It brings that into this dynamic. And when I was speaking with Shari Reinhart about her perspective on the human condition through struggle, she shared with me candidly an experience that she's going through with her own mom and what she's experiencing, observing how her mother deals with suffering. And we came up with a couple of revelations.
So my mother is, she doesn't feel anything. She just doesn't feel anything, which I'm learning as time goes by more and more about how she functions. And that is because I think she's afraid to feel.
When you say feel, you mean emotional or tactile?
She had a breast cancer surgery, and that day she came home and she made supper for her husband. Okay? You literally were in the recovery room for 2.5 hours. You had a lump room. Like, you're 85 years old at the time that this, like, I didn't understand at all. And I was just learning about how she doesn't really feel anything. And it's interesting because some people do not, sadly, have the capacity to grow from their pain or out of their suffering. And it breaks my heart because I am someone who needs the extreme opposite. I can't live with anxiety. I can't get out of bed if I feel overwhelmed. Like too much of those feelings will put me out. And she thrives on that. Like literally, she does really well with suffering. And I've had to learn to let her have that. That was, do you know how many times I tried to fix her, change her, help her, save her because I see her suffering. It is so deep. She is so wounded and I'm trying so hard to fix, help, save. So it's all a mindset, and letting go of that idea helped save me, because the more I tried to fix, help, and save her to make her happy, forcing happy on her, the more it took out of me. So now we were two dysfunctional people. There's a lot of reflection on the self as well.
Absolutely. I have been thinking a lot lately about the fact that the more we allow ourselves to be however we are, whatever our reactions are, the more we allow for that and accept our humanity, whether it is to be in denial, whether it is to be in anger, whether it's to be in happiness or sadness, the more we just allow that and give ourselves grace, the more we let people just kind of be who they are.
That's it. I mean, that is everything. Like every question you asked me, the answer's there. Learning how to do that for yourself is fundamental to having a more relaxed life, I think.
So here we are at the end of another season, looking at this transformative journey, looking at how caregiving really does change a lot of who we are at our core. It can transform us in the most beautiful ways, and it can, in the process, be very painful. Once we start the journey to healing, once we start and have the courage to take that step to look at ourselves, there is so much opportunity in that unknown. Next season, we're going to focus on what it means to be an evolved person, not just in caregiving, but in life. We're going to look at how, when you take the moment to allow yourself to reflect on the things that you're doing great and the things that you want to change, and you take that very, very first step to step into a better life, how that feels, what that looks like, how do you get there? We're going to talk about what does it mean to be an evolved caregiver? What does it mean to have self-love in caregiving? It's such a loaded term in this space. And ultimately, we're going to look at how caregiving is not the be-all, end-all for our lives, but only an extra spice that adds to the flavors of who we are. If you like what you heard today, be sure to rate, follow, or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Cynthia Iorio. Until next time.